resilient. Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Friday, November 5th. This is Africa 54.
Tigray forces join with other groups in an alliance against Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. A Minnesota state legislator is helping change the face of American politics. And in our entertainment segment, a roundup of Africa's top 3 hits.
Tigray forces are joining with other armed and opposition groups in alliance against Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to seek a political transition. After a year of devastating war, organizers say their signing in Washington, D.C. on Friday includes the Oromo Liberation Army, now fighting alongside the Tigray forces and 7 other groups from around the country. An organizer tells the Associated Press the new United Front of Ethiopian Federalist Forces seeks to establish a transitional arrangement in Ethiopia so the Prime Minister can go as soon as possible. The war in the Tigray region has killed thousands of people since November 2020. Hundreds of people joined a peaceful protest organized by ethnic Tigrayans living in and around Washington, D.C. Thursday to denounce the Ethiopian government on the first anniversary of its deadly military conflict with forces in the country's northern Tigray region. The protesters marched from Capitol Hill to the U.S. Agency for International Development, then on to the State Department. The protesters chanted slogans and held signs accusing the Ethiopian government of committing genocide against the Tigrayan people and driving them into a famine. Many of the demonstrators carried...
Circulating around through this area, basically raising awareness to what's been happening in Tigray, the most northern part of Ethiopia, for the last year. Currently, Tigray is under siege. There's a blackout, telecommunication blackout. There's weaponized rape and weaponized famine that's happening right now.
Many of the demonstrators carried the red and gold flag of the Tigray region. Some joined the protests from as far away as the western states of California and Washington. They concluded the march in a vigil near the White House and are planning to gather for more protests in the U.S. Capitol on Friday and Saturday. Thursday marked the first anniversary of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's deployment of troops into Tigray in response to the forces of the Tigray People's Liberation Front seizing military bases days earlier. The ensuing conflict has displaced several million people from their homes and left 400,000 residents of Tigray facing famine, according to a July estimate by the United Nations. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden has announced plans to remove Ethiopia, Mali, and Guinea from the African Growth and Opportunity Act. AGOA allows African member countries duty-free access to the U.S. market, citing gross violations of the internationally recognized human rights. President Biden says Ethiopia is not in compliance with the AGOA's eligibility requirements. Biden also says both Mali and Guinea are not making progress toward establishing the rule of law and political inclusion. For more insight, I'm joined live via Skype from Washington by Joanna LeBlanc, a foreign policy and national security expert. Joanna, welcome to Africa 54. And let's start off with what are the likely economic implications of Biden's announcement, beginning with Ethiopia?
Sure. There are serious economic implications when it comes to this decision by the Biden administration. In Ethiopia alone, over 100,000 jobs have been created in the textile sector. And in Mali and in Guinea, countless jobs will be lost as a result of the removal of those countries from AGOA. But the reality is that I think when countries sign on to become beneficiaries of AGOA, the terms are clearly stipulated that in order to maintain status, you must comply with certain international laws around human rights and obviously the rule of law and political stability. And here, unfortunately, because of the lack of, the administration had to take this position. While I think it is incredibly difficult for African countries, to maintain their economic systems, I really do hope that the Biden administration would have thought this through, because what is happening here is that by taking this position, it is clearly making China and Russia to diversify their footprint across the African continent. And
but again, Joanna, how different would this be in the different countries? Because we know Ethiopia is going through its own political conflict. There's an ongoing war there. In the case of Mali and in the case of Guinea, there have been coups, and now the military leaders are taking, the positions there. I mean, what kind of pressure would the president have, added to these countries so they can actually respect the agreements of AGOA, including human rights? Look at Mali. It has also, it's reeling from insurgency from the Islamists over there.
Yeah, I think it's a clear message from Washington that Washington will not tolerate human rights abuses across the African continent. But I think at the same token, individualized sanctions targeting perpetrators of human rights violations would have been the better route to go. Because now you're going to have a number of folks in those countries who would not be employed. So these factories and these companies will have to look at other countries on the African continent to engage in business. So while I think that there needs to be respect for the rule of law in Guinea, Mali, and obviously Ethiopia and other countries, but at the same token, we have to think about the greater economic impact on the country as a whole when it comes to these types of decisions by Washington, D.C.
What would you rather see than if looking at the umbrella situation of the three countries in a nutshell that would really work to put pressure on these leaders to respect human rights?
Well, what I would have preferred to see is targeted sanctions against the actual perpetrators of human rights, right, in those countries. Because here, it's the people, it's the ordinary citizens. For goodness sakes, you have people working in a factory. They're already not making a whole lot of money. And now those jobs will be gone, because if those companies cannot maintain the tax benefits and also the duty-free benefits, they're not going to stay in those countries. They will leave, and rightfully so, and so on. But I think that targeting individuals who are responsible for these various human rights violations is the better way to go versus the country as a whole.
Right. Joanna, thanks for your insight. Joanna LeBlanc is a foreign policy and national security expert who joined us live via Skype from here in Washington. Now, the legacy party of Nelson Mandela has suffered its worst election result since the end of apartheid, slipping below a 50% vote share for the first time and raising the prospect it could one day find itself in opposition. David Doyle explains.
South Africa's governing African National Congress has suffered its worst election result since taking power at the end of white minority rule 27 years ago. A final count on Thursday showed the ANC on 46% of the vote in municipal elections. That's seen as punishment from an electorate wearied by repeated corruption scandals and poor basic services. Local elections are seen as an opportunity for the populace to lodge protest votes. But the ANC has been steadily losing support. Winning less than 50% for the first time raises the prospect, albeit still remote, that the legacy party of Nelson Mandela could, in the not-too-distant future, be forced into opposition or a coalition with smaller parties. However, Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula pointed out that the ANC was still the victorious party.
That ANC from the voters are saying to us, we still trust you that you can do better and do things better, as you said, that you will build better communities with us, but at the same time, we are not giving you a decisive victory.
And despite the ANC's falling popularity, rival parties have not yet been able to capitalize. Main rival, the Democratic Alliance, is still regarded as a party for South Africa's economically privileged white minority. It took 22% of the vote from Monday's poll. But DA leader John Steenhuisen said the political landscape is changing.
One-party domination is coming to a swift end across the length and breadth of South Africa, and we need to be able to take advantage of that going into the next election. So the road to 2024 starts today.
The economic freedom fighters scored 10%. The fledgling Marxist party is prone to radical and sometimes violent rhetoric that does not appeal to a broad range of voters. EFF leader Julius Malema said the ANC falling below 50% made him the happiest man.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. UNICEF's Director of Health Programs has been in Zimbabwe for a week to assess the progress of the country's maternal, newborn and children's health systems. His visit comes nearly 10 years after the UN agency injected millions of dollars into the programs. Columbus Mavunga has more from Mount Darwin, Zimbabwe.
Belinda Kaziwisi is from Mount Darwin, Zimbabwe, which is near the Mozambique border, about 200 kilometers north of Harare. She's one of the Zimbabwean mothers seeing the benefits that have grown from money provided by UNICEF.
From the time I got pregnant until the delivery of my child, I didn't pay anything. When I delivered, I was given soap, cotton, and other things for free. It was nice compared to what used to happen before.
With funding from UNICEF, the Zimbabwe government has hired health workers who encourage pregnant mothers in rural villages to seek assistance from the country's health institutions to avoid complications.
We tell them the journey to the delivery of your baby can be so easy. Your baby will be taken care of, even while in the tummy, since there are now so many diseases. If they do not come to clinic, the baby may be delivered with illnesses. That's how we encourage them to come to clinic when they become pregnant.
Dr. Tajudini Oyewale, the UNICEF representative in Zimbabwe, says having health workers in rural villages and funding the country's health sector are both paying off.
And when you look back at the latest result of the multiple indicator cluster survey, Zimbabwe has successfully halved maternal mortality ratio in the last 10 years. And this is a combination of different efforts of everyone. The challenges are real because the world is evolving.
UNICEF's Campo was a junior official in Zimbabwe for the UN agency when it launched the Health Transition Fund, a multi-donor pooled fund to support the country's barely functioning health sector in 2012. This week, Campo has been in Zimbabwe to assess whether the fund has changed Zimbabwe's maternal, newborn and child health systems. He says the fund is bearing fruits.
And I'm very pleased with the progress which Zimbabwe has made in terms of providing health services to their entire populations. It is not perfect, but I think Zimbabwe can be proud of the achievement made.
The Mali national said Zimbabwe now has a fully functional health system in primary health care, a sharp contrast to what the nation had nearly a decade ago. Columbus Mavunga for VOA News, Mount Darwin, Zimbabwe.
The executive director of the UN AIDS agency says West and Central Africa could see a rise in HIV infections and AIDS-related deaths in a few years due to disruptions in health services because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Soraya Ali has more.
The coronavirus pandemic could lead to more HIV infections in West and Central Africa. That's according to the executive director of the UN AIDS agency, Winnie Byanyima. She says the region could see a rise in HIV infections and AIDS-related deaths in a few years due to disruptions in health services caused by the global health crisis.
We are seeing disruptions in prevention services, sometimes as high as 60%, more people falling out of treatment. We know this happens because either they fear to go, or they are not even able to go because of lockdowns, or they fear because they think they'll get a virus there.
Health systems in the region have been stretched by the outbreak, forcing governments to divert scarce resources to tackle the pandemic. Although HIV and AIDS-related deaths have been on a steady decline over the past decade, West and Central Africa accounted for 22% of AIDS-related deaths in 2020. Around 200,000 people in the region became newly infected with HIV last year, out of a global total of 1.5 million, according to data from the UN. New infections in the region were growing fast among vulnerable groups, including young girls and women, gay men, sex workers, drug users and prisoners who don't always have ready access to preventative measures and treatment. UNAIDS warned in July last year that the global fight against the syndrome had been faltering even before the COVID-19 pandemic, and that the crisis was threatening to put progress against HIV back by 10 years or more.
Soraya Ali of Reuters filed that report. Colin Powell, the widely praised soldier diplomat who died of complications from COVID-19 last month at 84, is being remembered at a funeral service Friday at the Washington National Cathedral. Powell was a model for minorities in public and private life. A Vietnam combat veteran, Powell would serve 35 years in uniform as he rose to become the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and later the first black Secretary of State. Powell had been vaccinated against the coronavirus, but his family says his immune system had been compromised by multiple myeloma, a blood cancer for which he had been undergoing treatment. The diaspora groups that make up the United States have inevitably fought for representation through the voting process. VOA is profiling a group of emerging politicians with direct ties to Africa who are changing the face of American politics. In our final diaspora profile, let's look at Minnesota State Senator Omar Fateh, whose parents came from Somalia.
My name is Omar Fateh. I'm the state senator for District 62 in South Minneapolis. I was born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Virginia. And on the campaign trail and along with my colleagues, I've been telling them that I'm growing up in an immigrant household, but within the American culture, which is a melting pot of ideas, thoughts, religions, and so on. I think I was best to bridge the gap between the new immigrants as well as the folks that have been here.
I, Omar Fateh, do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States.
I'm blessed to represent a very diverse district in South Minneapolis. It's a lot of working class folks. These are folks that have been really hit really hard this past year with the George Floyd murder, the uprising that followed, but as well as COVID-19, which impacted all of us. I regularly go to Lake Street, which are mostly Latino-owned businesses, and I've made that connection with them to help them understand what resources are out there in COVID and in general. I've built a relationship with folks in Little Earth to understand indigenous issues, but also what they want to prioritize in the upcoming sessions. When we speak to them, we make sure that we understand that they're not a monolith, right? So if you go into Little Earth, you don't assume that everybody has the same idea or thought process. That's just not how it is. So I was fortunate enough to form committees within these different communities so that they can help educate me, but also I take their ideas back to the legislature with me to turn it into action and into bills. So a lot of the bills that we come up with are actually constituent run and ideas that we brought with us in these meetings. So we're here at Carmel Mall, located in South Minneapolis. There are two Somali malls here in South Minneapolis, both in my district. This is one of the areas that was hit hardest by COVID-19. For the first few months during the pandemic, people really struggled. We had businesses here shut down, but they rebounded. They came back. We had the customers continue to come and support these locally owned, immigrant-owned businesses, and they continue to thrive. So they really bounced back from COVID-19. We have a lot of business owners that are immigrant-owned businesses, specifically within the daycares, child daycares and adult daycares, home care owners, group home owners, and folks that have struggled with the administrative side of the Department of Human Services. One of the things I try to do is bridge the gap between the immigrant community, but also their government, the commissioners, assistant commissioners. I've had meetings with the departments as well as the business owners so that they can fully understand any policy changes that are coming up. For example, if they've had any issues with their businesses, they can better understand how to function and organize. But also bringing the businesses together so that they get to know one another as well, so that when they're interacting with government, they're united as one voice rather than individual businesses, and that has proven to be successful. This is George Floyd Square. It is a memorial, a remembrance for George Floyd and the murder that occurred a little over a year ago now. Folks are coming from all over to come pay their respects, look at the memorial, but also come to these black businesses that are over here, the coffee shops, the restaurants, the tea bars. We've seen a massive increase in crime following the murder of George Floyd. And we've seen people attribute that to maybe having less officers or we need more police, when that's not the case. We have to remember that because of COVID, a lot of people lost work. A lot of people went on unemployment. A lot of people were struggling to pay rent. And then couple that with the murder of George Floyd, which was a national murder. People saw an innocent black man getting tortured to death for 9 minutes. People took to the streets. They were really upset. I represent the district that followed really hurt a lot of folks, both the protesters but also business owners. I'm hoping to continue the good work that our office as well as our colleagues have done here. So making sure that we prioritize public safety, making sure that we're investing in affordable housing and public housing so that we're not pricing out our residents and we're preserving our diversity, and making sure that we have a single-payer healthcare system that's not tied to employment so that we make sure that healthcare is fundamentally a human right.
Heather Maxwell brings us October's top 3 African global hits.
I saw the fire in your eyes. I need you in the morning, but I need you now. You are like the oxygen I need to survive, I'll be honest.
Hey everybody, I'm Heather.
Mr. Santa here.
Are you ready for our next top 3?
I don't think they're ready yet.
Starting with number 3 is The Weeknd, and the song is Take My Breath Away. Take my breath. Now, the reason this is number 3 is because, well, all 3 of the hits you're about to see are in the current Billboard 100. So this one is at number 27. It has 62 million views and counting.
Now, Heather, the reason why I love this video, I mean, I always say I love these videos, but this one is very 80s inspired. So if you've watched the video off YouTube, it's very 80s, you know, and then it reminds me of the movie Blade, the trilogy. In one of the movies, there's a club scene where Blade just invades and then, you know, takes care of the vampires. Let us know by reaching out to us on Music Time in Africa on Twitter, and if you feel the same way, hey.
We're together. One other thing about The Weeknd that many people don't think about is that he's African. I mean, he was born and raised in Canada, but he is Ethiopian. His name is Abel Mekonnen Tesfaye. He speaks Amharic. All right, number 2 is Love Nwantiti by Nigerian artist CK, featuring Kwame Eugene from Ghana and Joe Boy. Now this one is number 31 on the Billboard charts, and it has about 95 million views, and is also, did you say it was the #1 song on TikTok?
Yes, it's #1 song on TikTok after the last time I checked. So yeah, it's making global waves.
Kwame, I don't know if you know what Love Nwantiti is. I didn't know what it was, so I talked to some folks in Nigeria. Love Nwantiti is Igbo. Nwantiti is Igbo, and it means plentiful. So plentiful love, and you can sure see that in the video. One other thing I'd like to mention about this song and video is that it's a style of music called alta cruise, which is kind of quite like R&B. It's easy. I guess that's why they call it cruise. Alta is for alternative. Cruise is like, you know, you cruise along, you know, it's chill.
Fun fact about the alta cruise is that it's not just the music, but it's a lifestyle. It's the fashion.
Do you think I look alta cruise?
Yeah, the top and the earrings, if you had the shades on, then perfect, alta cruise.
I'm gonna go get some shades. All right, and #1 is Essence. Essence by WizKid, featuring Thames and Justin Bieber. Now this song is also #1 because it is #12, the highest up of the 3 on the Billboard charts. It's amazing that all of these African songs are on our American Billboard charts. I mean, it's incredible. But also because it is #3 on the Hot R&B hip-hop chart on Billboard.
It was #1 a few weeks ago. It just got knocked down by Drake. So that video, Essence, was shot in Ghana.
I was going to say, wait, I don't think there's any features of Ghanaian artists.
Hey, there's no feature about Ghana. We are claiming that video.
So this is also an alta cruise song. We are in alta cruise now. You know, it's refreshing. It's not Afro beats. It's not, you know, bonga flavor. It's something much more chill.
Yes, very chill, and we love it. We love WizKid, and congratulations to him on all the success. I'm sure he'll win a Grammy next year.
You think so?
I think so.
That'd be awesome.
You heard it here first. He's winning a Grammy.
All right, so that was our top 3 African global hits. I'm Heather Maxwell.
Asante.
See you next time.
Only you free all my